Welcome to From Betrayal to Breakthrough. I'm Dr. Debbie Silber, and today's guest is Heather Burgett. Heather has created a new take on PR by bringing a spiritual focus to this particular field of marketing. Through her intuitive skills, she helps people identify, claim, and own their unique gifts so that they can be of service to those in the world who'll benefit most. By blasting through limiting beliefs, she helps her clients and members confidently enter the mainstream spotlight so they can lead a purpose-driven life and connect with their ideal clientele and audience. Blending universal spiritual principles with strategic business strategy, her clients are propelled to a new level of recognition and success. So you know how I'm always talking about doing something good with something that causes us pain. My next guest is my friend Heather Burgett, and she'll be sharing her betrayal experiences, how they affected her, and more importantly, what she learned from her experiences and what she's created as a result. Ready to share your message in a powerful way? You're going to love this conversation. Here's Heather. Okay, everybody, you're in for such a treat today. I have my friend Heather Burgett with us. And, you know, usually we talk about betrayal of a family member, partner, friend, coworker, self, whatever. I think we're kind of covering the gamut today. But the good news is we're going to talk about Heather's story and just of a few betrayals. And then we're going to talk about the wonderful stuff it led to. So lots to cover today. Welcome, Heather.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
You know, I was so interested in your story because so often we experience some sort of betrayal, and it is so common to have repeat betrayals when there's just more to learn and more to experience. But what I love so much is when we take that and we do something good with it. And that's what you did, and that's what you're doing now. But I don't even want to get there yet. Let's start. Let's start at the beginning. So can you share about, some of the betrayals and what went on, and then we'll get to what it led to.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's so ever since we've connected and we talked about me coming on your show, I've really been, thinking about it, like how has betrayal played a part in my life? And when I really sat down and thought about it, I was like, you know what? There have been 3 times in my life, each about 20 years apart, where there was a major betrayal of some kind. And of course we all, I've been reading your book and realizing like, oh yeah, like we're actually betrayed a lot, and we probably betray each other on a very regular basis without even realizing it. Sometimes there are all these like smaller things that happen in life, but these were like ones which I might even classify as core wounds. And I addressed the first one recently on my own podcast, The Shine Strategy, for the first time speaking publicly about it. And the 2 subsequent ones, I've only hinted at the second and third ones. And so this will be the first time to ever speak about them. So I have to say I've been a little bit like, oh my gosh, here we go. Like this is what I teach people, is how to tell their stories, put them out into the spotlight. And that by showing that vulnerability, that's where our super strengths come from.
We gotcha. Dive right in. And before you even share that, I so get how hard it is to be vulnerable. I am so private. I'm a very private person, but I know, when it comes to betrayal, that I want everybody to know they're not crazy. They're not alone. So in knowing our stories, then people just get that extra validation to say, oh my gosh, it's not just me. So know that you're speaking to an audience who gets it. They've been there.
I so appreciate that. And, I did find that when I spoke publicly about my father for the first time, that there's so much support came in, and so many people told me they could relate. And so that's where I just feel like if anything I say today can inspire someone or help just one person, like that's worth it alone. So the first one, I was a baby. My father left my mom and myself. He was cheating with another woman, and he left us. So that was sort of, I think something that in my earlier years I struggled with. It's all I ever knew was him not being there. But I think all the impact that has on one's life with how it affected my mother and how I was treated. And then my new stepfather who came in, who wasn't a very nice guy, and, not being able to see my father. a lot. Like there was a lot attached to all of that.
Absolutely. And what did you, so how old were you, first of all, when this
I was
happened?
a baby.
So you were a baby. And then as you got older and you learned the story, what did you make of that? How did you interpret it?
You know, I don't think I really realized it when I was that young in terms of that he had left for another. I didn't get that until someone told me years later. I mean, I knew he had a new wife, you know, and that was something that was a little confusing as a child, but he did make an effort to come see me, and, you know, we had like our Sundays together. But then he actually had a really bad accident, and he had a brain injury. He had a drinking and driving car accident when I was about 6, and he almost didn't survive that. And he actually had, you know, issues after that with his short-term memory. It was a frontal lobe injury. And so that kind of shifted and changed everything, where, you know, he was struggling a lot more in life and how to get through it. And I think one time I actually, you know, how, you know, when you're in that situation, they have to pay alimony. And I guess my dad had fallen behind in his alimony payments. And I remember, you know, I was so young. I remember walking in the kitchen and hearing my mom hang up on my dad saying, "You don't get to see her till you start paying." So that, I think, really colored some things from a very young age in terms of not consciously thinking like, oh, my dad doesn't think I'm worth it. But I realized later, like, oh my gosh, that's where some self-esteem and worth issues might have come from.
You know, it's so common in a situation like that to feel that sense of rejection and abandonment, and we take it personally when it really has nothing to do with us. And then because that's what we've interpreted, we create relationships that show that, you know, and that express that. So you kind of had this experience and you carried it with you, and then that, you know, that situation with your mom on the phone, that really left a lasting impact. And then did it affect your relationship with your mom?
Yeah, I mean, I think there was always that sort of feeling of, you know, why didn't my mom comfort me more in the situation instead of it being more about being angry at my dad, and I was missing him. And so there was definitely some stuff I had to work through on, you know, the relationship with my mother's side. I've had to do a lot of forgiveness work for all of my parents, my mom, my stepdad, my real father, my biological father, you know, forgiveness work just to, like, you know that everyone was doing the best they could with the tools they had at the time, and process grief, anger, frustration, just a lot of releasing.
And that sounds like it's coming from a very healed place. And as we're going through it, we're not, you know, we don't always sound just like that. Was there anything specifically you did around forgiveness work? Because the way we do it in our community is we definitely work on forgiveness. But I've also found when we try to do it too soon, it backfires. It's got to be when we're ready for it, and gently and in our own way. Was there something that really worked for you where you're like, wow, you know what? That moved the needle. That totally made a difference.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me it was, you know, a big empowerment thing was just pursuing my dream. So right after college, I hopped a plane to Los Angeles because I wanted to become a movie publicist. So for me, it was like, I'm going to take action. I'm going to go out there and follow my dreams and get out of all this dysfunction and toxicity. And
but wait a second, you wanted to get out of dysfunction and toxicity, and then you went to Hollywood?
I know, right? Well, yeah, well, then comes the next part of the story. So
I guess, you know, it's so interesting because we always move to not necessarily what's good, but what's so familiar. So there's something really interesting about moving from dysfunctional family to Hollywood. I mean, what do I know? I'm just talking about the stories I hear.
Exactly. But sure enough, yeah, Hollywood is a very toxic place, which I learned pretty quickly. So I was working there for 2 years, and then I liken it to getting kicked off a speeding train that was on the wrong tracks.
Oh, wow.
So I had jumped in. I was having massive success as a young woman. I, you know, was featured in the New York Times for, you know, being promoted to VP of publicity at this agency at, I think I was 27 years old. So, I think a part of me, like the things I'm learning through your PBT Institute and the book was like, oh, I felt I had something to prove. So I just went gangbusters and was having some really wonderful successes. But at the same time, I was working myself to the bone, and I was starting to have a healing crisis where I was sick.
Yeah. And before you even get into that, this is so common. It's so common because there's that need to prove, right? And then we do. And it's this intense energy. But the reason why we're getting sick is because the energy is coming from the wrong place. It's like when you look at the soil that's allowing something to grow. There's healthy, wonderful soil, and things, grow and blossom and bloom. But then if the soil is, kind of poisoned and has some stuff there that isn't healthy, it's not that wonderful, rich, healing foundation to get us started. And it sounds like, and this is what I hear all the time, yes, the success was there, but when you look at the soil, the foundation, it wasn't from that strong healed place. It was from that, determination, and I'll show you, and here I go, which is great, but not without a price.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And at that point, the price was becoming my health and my sanity. And I did experience another betrayal. So not only was my body crashing from working 70, 80-hour weeks, and part of the job was going for drinks and dinners and weekends and nights. And it was like, my life was all consumed by my job. And I was really wearing myself very thin. And so, at that point, I was starting a company with the friends that I was in another company with. I considered them best friends. We started another company. Let's just say it went south really fast. They lied to me about some things, and it put me in a position where I was like, I'm out. I can't do this. I'm killing myself, and what's it worth? It's not worth this. And so at that point, I did start my healing journey through acupuncture and chiropractic and herbs.
And how did you know it was wrong? Like, what ways were your body telling you, or your mind telling you, oh, this is not right, this is not a fit?
It was just largely my gut, in terms of feeling like terrible. Like I just nothing felt right. Like just the interactions I was having with these people, going into the office just felt wrong. It didn't feel like, I don't belong here. So I had to really trust and follow that. And they kind of helped me make that decision, because it was a situation where I was like, I've got to leave.
And you know what's so brilliant about that? And I want everybody to hear this. The body doesn't lie, right? You were getting signals the whole time. This is not a fit. This is not in your best interest. This is not where you need to be or where you could be, where it serves you best. And your body is talking, and it will speak louder and louder until you get until you pay attention. And unfortunately, it takes on the symptoms, the illness, the condition, sometimes disease, in order for us to say, okay, I'm ready to listen. And it sounds like that's exactly what happened with you.
Yeah, I always say that if you don't listen, you're going to get hit over the head with the frying pan by God or the universe.
Yep.
And that's what was happening to me. Is it was like just so in my face, like, you cannot do this anymore. And so I was borderline fibromyalgia by the time I did leave Hollywood. And I had major gut issues, and I was just a hot mess. I think I had ulcers. Everything was just falling apart. And I'd also been diagnosed with Epstein-Barr in college. So fatigue was already an issue, the autoimmune stuff. So at this point I was like, okay, I'm just leaving all of this toxicity. It's not good for my heart or soul. And I actually went to the Zen Buddhist Center of Los Angeles, and I learned how to meditate. I learned how to sit zazen. And I had gone to actually a psychic at the time, and he said, you are a ticking time bomb. He's like, you need to start meditating. And it changed my life. It really, like, learning how to calm the mind and the mental activities.
And share with everybody, what was the difference in how you felt when you just knew it wasn't right, it wasn't good, and your body was reacting, to when you started doing, the meditation? What was the difference in how you physically felt?
I felt calm. I felt so much better. I started to feel fulfilled again. I literally at the time was feeling like it saved my life, because I was definitely on a track to putting myself into an early grave the way that I was living and not taking care of myself in the right ways. So yes, it made a change.
Yeah. And what made you choose meditation? Was it something where you were like, did you hear about it? What was it? Because everybody comes up with their own recipe, of what they need to heal. And I'm always curious what makes somebody choose one modality over another, or why they chose one thing first. Was there a reason why you chose that?
Yeah, I think I was always fascinated with the metaphysical. Even as a young child, we would hold seances at recess in fifth grade. And I always just was fascinated with, people like Edgar Cayce, the sleeping prophet, and, the whole connection, the whole mind, body, spirit connection. So I guess at that time, it was like this calling that I couldn't ignore anymore. So not only did I start meditating, but I also started to go to massage school at an acupuncture school. So it had this Eastern bent to the training. And that was just like the beginning of a very deep healing journey that went on for like maybe 10 years for myself. I became a healer. I worked in the healing arts. I gained over 500 hours of training in modalities and body and energy work. And it was the coolest thing about becoming a healer is you do all the things on yourself first.
Mm-hmm.
So you get to get your own healing and then help others.
I love that. And what's so interesting too, you mentioned gut issues, and I find, and we've had, at this point, 8,500 plus people who've taken our post-betrayal syndrome quiz. And it's about 45 to 50% of people who take the quiz have a gut issue. It is so common when it comes to stress, betrayal, and everything. And what I find so interesting is, and I've said this before on other shows, but think about what the gut does. It absorbs, digests, and processes food. Well, isn't, stress or a toxic relationship or betrayal difficult to absorb, digest, and process? Like, is it any wonder why the gut is acting up? So tell us at what point in your journey did you, if your gut started healing, what you noticed, and other symptoms that started getting better with different things that you did?
Well, I would say that because I went all in on my healing, within 6 months, I was feeling a lot better. And I was hitting it from mind, body, spirit. I was going to a chiropractor, an acupuncturist. I was taking herbs. I was meditating. I was like, whatever I can do. I started getting, more body work and energy work as I embarked on my own healing arts journey. But yeah, I would say that the gut stuff, really, the herbs and the acupuncture, like within 6 months, oh my gosh, I felt like a whole new person.
Oh, that's so great. And as you healed, if you were to look back, like when you looked back on your scenario, did you see it differently from that healed space?
In terms of what had happened?
Yeah, just knowing how you like, sometimes when you remove yourself from a situation, you look and you're like, what the heck was I doing there? Or, and I see it so often as, sometimes we can look at a picture and sometimes we're in it. And then when we're healed, it's almost like we step out of the picture and we're looking at it and we see it from such a different vantage point. And I noticed from that healed space, we can look at what seemed so normal and from a very different vantage point, we're like, what the heck was I doing there? I didn't belong there. That wasn't a fit at all.
It's hard because I think at the beginning it was a fit. And I did have some wonderful experiences and success and things I'll never forget. And I'm grateful for some of the people that I worked with and met. And so I think in the time I knew it was bad. Like I was not feeling well. The environment was clearly toxic in terms of a lot of the people that I was working with. So, in retrospect, that's when I started to see it like, okay, you were on the speeding train, but it was on the wrong track. So that's where I really knew like I was going to get kicked off that path no matter what, because it was not the right path.
Got it. Okay. And then what did that lead to? Because you did mention 3 betrayals.
Right. So then we got about 20 years later. So from baby to, in the 20s and then in the late 30s, early 40s, I ended up having a betrayal with a boyfriend. And he turned out to be just about as bad as they can come. I had no idea what I was getting myself into with this person. I think it was the typical sociopathic, the charming person that later you find out is lying to you about everything. So the betrayal of cheating, lying, and to the point where he actually got violent with me. He had addiction problems, alcohol problems. And I think he was hiding some drug use from me too, because he just one night absolutely went crazy and attacked me. Wow. And he ended up spending that night in jail. So at that point it was like, oh my gosh, like my life is worth so much more than having this person in it. Right. Like that was where, cause I think probably the beginning I had fallen in love, and that was where it was hard to get out because I was hooked in. And it becomes somewhat codependent. And then it was like every few months, like another thing would become uncovered. And at first it was like, okay, not so bad, and then it would get worse and worse and worse. And to the point where I was like, this person is lying to me about everything. This guy is cheating on a large scale. And I had no idea, but the truth kept being shown to me in bigger and bigger ways. And when it got to the point where it became physical, which is something, I mean, I was spanked as a kid, but I'd never been physically, attacked or anything before. That's where I thought, you know what, I value myself and my life more than trying to work it out with this person that's keeps, telling me it's going to get better, but it doesn't. And at that point, I actually started going to Al-Anon, because actually both my father and stepfather had alcohol issues. And as a child of an alcoholic, or as an adult child of alcoholics, that was, for me, people kept saying, like, I think it'll help you a lot. And it really did, because it helped me learn and recognize these patterns and how I had possibly, because I couldn't understand how I had attracted this person into my life. I'd never met anyone like that before. And realizing, I guess there were still some things that were needing to be healed and coming up to be addressed in this exchange with this person.
And you know what is so beautiful about what you said, and I hope everybody hears that. You said, I value myself enough to get out of this, or so it was something like that, but I value myself enough. And what I see so often is we've been so manipulated, and it's like we drank the Kool-Aid and we start believing this nonsense, and we get in deeper and deeper and deeper and start making excuses for someone else's poor behavior, and we're not being treated with love, respect, kindness, anything, and somehow we tolerate it. And when I spin it around for someone and I say, would you ever treat someone else like that? They're like, oh my gosh, no, of course not. So why is it we wouldn't dare treat other people like that, and we're willing to tolerate that behavior? But you saw it was only getting worse, and I love that you valued yourself enough to do something about it. So so getting out of that relationship, what did that take? What did that look like?
That took me going to Al-Anon meetings every night for like 2 weeks, because I knew I did not want that person in my life, but he was a master manipulator, and he could always seem to worm his way back in. And I really had to dig deep and put my foot down and, find a way to extricate myself from a very dysfunctional and toxic person. And the strength I got from hearing other people's stories, knowing I wasn't alone, and learning also about that type of person and how they function. And what I loved most in that process of that healing and journey was it was, so much about claiming responsibility for myself and my own actions and the part I had played in allowing that person into my life and to treat me that way. So it was a huge learning curve on that one.
And you can tell that you had a good amount of that spirituality under your belt by what you're saying. Things like, well, I took responsibility for my part in it. And that doesn't mean the blame for something you didn't do. It was only like, what did I need to learn here? And what role did I play in all this? And what can I learn from this so that I don't, wind up with someone like this again? So it sounds like you can hear and feel all the work that you did. What did it lead to? Where are you now?
Well, I will say that after that, I said, you know what? I just want to experience life through joy, no more struggle. I feel that that is a choice to learn through joy. And I asked Universe, Spirit, God to give me lessons and to teach me in a way that wasn't so painful, right? That I wanted to be able to grow and develop as a human being, but with positivity and joy, and we can grow through positive experiences. So ever since then, I've really cleared out any toxicity in my life. I had a couple of other lingering toxic relationships, one with a family member that has since become kind of karma complete. Another person that I was lingering around the outskirts. I was like, enough with toxic situations. And I really decided to dive deep into my dreams. And that was my purpose as well, which I really took my grandmother dying, my last grandparent at 95 a couple years ago. That was end of 2015, I think. Yeah. And, she was like a best friend, and it was heartbreaking to lose her. And been very close to all my grandparents. 3 of the 4 served in World War II. They were both sets were married over 60 years. They were just like my rocks, And so going on a kind of soul-searching trip to Bali after she died, I was like, what do I want to do with my life? How can I really shine and share my gifts? And, I wanted to make my grandmother proud. And, it took some digging and soul-searching, but I finally realized, what? I can teach what I know. I can teach what I've learned in 2 decades of going through, all the business stuff, all the spiritual stuff. And so that's when I decided to start my online programs, where I help heart-centered business owners, consultants, creatives, how to confidently claim who they are, shine their gifts into the world. And with my background as a publicist, show them how to step into the mainstream spotlight. And so much of that is claiming our story and integrating it, and knowing that, these things that have happened to us, they're part of us, and that's okay. So I really focus on how do we have a holistic brand? How do we show all of who we are and shine that into the world? Knowing that it's, even if you have things that you think are weaknesses, those are often your greatest strengths.
And I have to share with everybody, just so you know, I am personally working with Heather, and just to get me on the map in the way that she knows how, and it's just wonderful. I mean, just her ideas already have just been brilliant. So she's the real deal for sure.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, we've talked a lot about your positioning and how to get you out there and getting you in front of some of the right people. So I'm really excited to see how that unfolds for you, because, if anyone has a message that needs to get out there far and wide, it is you and this one.
Thanks. Thank you so much. So tell us what you're working on now and where everybody can go to learn more about you.
Yeah, so about 3 years ago, I started my PR Stars programs, and I also launched a podcast last year, The Shine Strategy. I have my community online. If anyone wants to join us over there, it's the Shine Strategy Insiders on Facebook. And really, it's just a heart-centered community of, I serve mostly women, but some men, and looking to embrace their gifts and learn how to get in front of larger audiences, how to get in front of the right people that they're meant to collaborate with, connect with, and serve in this lifetime. Because every single one of us has something that only we can do in the way we do it for the people that we're meant to connect with. So really tapping into that purpose clarity, message clarity, how to get visible, how to raise your online presence, how to reach a global audience, and just take everything in your life to the next level from a spiritually aligned place. But the biggest issue most people have is they just don't know the steps. How do I do these things? How do I get in front of the right people? So because of my background, bringing in what I call my shine strategies, my business strategies that I've used for so many years to help unknown underdogs to some of the top celebrities on the planet, how do they do it? And so I pull back the curtain and I help people understand that.
That's so great. And I'm with you. I think everybody without exception has a unique strength, gift, talent, calling. And when you figure that out, which is usually hidden under a few layers of fear, doubt, and insecurity, but when you figure that out, we need people like Heather to help us get our messages out there. So that's wonderful. So is there where do we go? Is there a link? Share it with us.
I would love to invite everyone here to take my quiz, and that's to find out your visibility superpower. And they can go to shinesuperpower.com to take that. It's geared towards women, but men, you're invited to take it too. So that's shinesuperpower.com. And if you go through that quiz, you'll also be invited to an upcoming free event that I'm holding, a free 3-day course called my Shine Online Accelerator course. And I'd love to invite any of your audience members or listeners here today to join us.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. And any parting words, anything you want to make sure we all know as we wrap up?
Yeah. And this, whenever I'm doing these kind of interviews, I go in just very open-hearted, and I think, okay, I kind of say a little prayer beforehand, like, just if there's anything that anyone needs to hear today, let me say it. And even if it just impacts one person's life today, like, that's, to me, that means everything. So I feel like I've said a lot, but if I had to give one parting thought for the day, I would say, don't quit before the miracle.
Oh, I love that. Heather, thank you so much. You shared such wisdom, such insight, and we all need people like you in our corner to just help us effectively and proactively do the work we're meant to do and get it out there to the people who need what we have to share. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
I loved Heather's journey and what she learned as she moved from one experience to the next. It's another example of finding the tools, strategies, and modalities we need in order to create our own recipe to help us heal. Stay in touch with Heather by going to prstars.net, and we'll have all of her information in the show notes at thepbtinstitute.com/podcast. Here's my biggest takeaway. I value myself enough to get out of that relationship. Do you value yourself enough? What are you tolerating that isn't in your best interest, that's compromising your self-esteem, confidence, and self-worth? You can only live in joy when you clear out the toxicity, so it's a good reminder to do just that. And of course, we can help. Take the Post-Betrayal Syndrome quiz, which you can find at thepbtinstitute.com/quiz. And have you checked out the PBT Institute membership community? Imagine everything you'd ever need to become your physical, mental, emotional best. Community, support, certified coaches and practitioners you could schedule time with, daily classes on all kinds of interesting topics, curated experts teaching advanced strategies in the areas of health, mindset, spirituality, personal development. Imagine the most friendly, welcoming, and supportive place to become your best. All online. Nothing like this exists, and I am so excited to welcome you. Go to thepbtinstitute.com/join to learn more. Thanks for listening. Can't wait to be with you next time, and here's to your breakthrough.